Welcome home, Rod. It's an honor to be here with you today as the very first guest for the Global War on Terrorism Memorial podcast presented by the American Legion. Before we jump into the episode, I really wanted to use this opportunity to thank the American Legion for sponsoring this podcast. They do so much for veterans and service members and continue to do so much for us at the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation. Rod, how would you describe your relationship with the Legion?
I would call the Legion my familia. That's what I would do, and I would like to echo much of the sentiments that you just shared. This opportunity provided by them is just. I can never say thank you enough to them. But that's how they've always approached the support, everything that they've been supported this mission for nearly 10 years that we've been working on this. They've been by our side, and really honored to have this opportunity to continue our relationship together.
They're great. So for those who don't know you, Rod, I feel like everyone does, but just in case there's one or two people out there that don't, you are the president and CEO for the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation. What does it mean to you to be fulfilling that role?
It's not anything I ever thought I would ever be doing. Who as a child thinks like, hey, I want to do this someday. No, that's not anything that ever entered, my brain housing group. It just didn't happen. But going through life post-military service, met the founders of the foundation. I met them in 2016. I'm not one of the founders of the foundation, and they asked for assistance. And I was like, absolutely, I'll help out, joined the board in 2016. In 2017, we passed our first piece of legislation to get authorization to build this memorial. And that's when the small fledgling 501c3 with veterans and family members with no money they handed us the staff, like, all right, go do it. And that's when the good idea fairy became a reality. Shortly after that, in 2017, I stepped into leadership position and then built the team that everyone sees today, bringing in incredible leaders like yourself to assist in this mission. Since then, we've got authorization to build this memorial on the National Mall in an area called the Reserve, which is where all the war memorials are. Nothing new has been approved to be built within the Reserve of the National Mall since 2003. That was a steep mountain to climb, but we were able to do that, thankfully, because of veteran leadership on Capitol Hill. Everyone told me, Rod, that's impossible. No one's been able to pass it, but not going to be able to build it in there. Just go into the fabric of the city where all the other memorials we built. And I was like, no, the veterans will get this done. And that's what we did. And we effectively overturned the apple cart at that point and got authorization to build this memorial. Really, it's kind of adjacent to the Lincoln and the Vietnam Memorial. So that's what I've been doing. I'm a pretty boring guy. That's what I focus on mostly. You know this, Jen. We work together, so I'm doing this all the time. But then, probably more importantly, I'm a father of three sons. One is a GWOT veteran himself. He's currently serving at Fort Bragg, and then I have two grandsons as well.
Thanks for sharing, Rod. So you mentioned a little bit in there about building the team. And obviously, well, you did do this on your own for quite some time. Sometimes myself and the team are like, how in the heck did he do it?
I don't know.
But you do have a really amazing, tremendous team supporting you as you lead the charge in this mission. How do you build the team? What do you look for when you're seeking individuals to help you in this mission?
As far as like team building, one thing, there's three attributes that I look for. And this is something I learned after my 21 years of service, 10 deployments, everything I've done throughout my entire life is, a lot of people are going to want to help. I was a sniper on my Special Forces detachment. I wouldn't take my breacher with me on a sniper mission if I needed a sniper partner, right? So ability, are you able to provide, bring me to that table? Ability. Second thing is credibility. Who are you? Do you work well with others? You're a teamwork type of person. Is credibility. And the third thing, if they were pillars, this would be my center pillar, would be humility. Involvement in this process, in this sacred mission that you and I share. No matter what our attachment is or how we feel about the global war on terrorism, it's not about us. It's not. It's about all of us. So humility, ability, credibility, humility is kind of what I used to find the right people in the team. And that's from the board of directors on down. Like every single person, if someone goes to the webpage, they're going to look at them and I'm like, those are I won't say metrics I measured them against, but those are things that I looked for. I would typically, everyone I asked was just shocked that I would ask them, and you are actually one of them.
An honor to be here, Rod. This episode and the entire season, really, season one of our podcast, is going to be focused on the design of the memorial. But I think it might be important or helpful to our listeners to hear from you what the mission of the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation is.
Sure. So we are the congressionally designated charity tasked with building a national global war on terrorism memorial in Washington, D.C. We're organize, fundraise, and build. That's our job. And it's important that people understand as well that we are not a VSO. We don't fall within that bracket of charities as a veteran service organization. We're building a national war memorial. Upon dedication, we will run the programming at the site that we will continue to endure. So that has been, if I was to shorten it, I could probably talk forever on it, but that's the mission of us. That's the work you and I do every day.
Right. And so we're in the design phase of building the memorial now, but years ago, well before the foundation officially began the design phase, you had a vision. I think it was back in 2018, and you started soliciting feedback from our stakeholders on the design. Can you share a little bit about that with our listeners?
Sure. So in the 24-step process to build a national memorial, after we got our authorization, we were in steps 9 through 11, which is a or 9 through 12, site selection, and those steps. So I was trying to figure out, okay, let's get input from people, right? Let's find out where they think it should go, which is, so I started talking with people. Again, it was just me and a clipboard and a couple of helpers trying to figure this out, getting data on where it should go. But I knew at some point we'd be in steps 13 through 19, which we are in right now. I knew at some point we would get there. I like to plan ahead. I like to think I was a long-term pragmatic planner with contingencies everywhere. So that's what I started to do in 2018, collect data on what people wanted to see, how they wanted to feel, both qualitative and quantitative data. I started collecting that in 2018 because I knew at some point we'd be where we are today.
Another part of that is the Help Design History campaign, which is complete, but that was part of your vision on soliciting feedback. Can you share what the Help Design History campaign is or was?
Absolutely. So in 2018, I said I was a clipboard getting all these people fill out, and we had less than 200 people fill out that survey. I knew at some point when it wasn't just me juggling all the cats and chainsaws, the team would grow, and we would have the opportunity to solicit feedback from the American people. And I knew we'd get there at some point. And Jen, I know you remember this. I said, look, we have the questions. Let's go public. I had two goals that I gave you. I said, look, should be sure that we can get respondents from all 50 states, as well as every demographic from World War II to today. That was it. And here it is. Let's figure it out, right? And you did a phenomenal job at that. You took it with our marketing team and our comms team, and I'm tremendously proud to say we had 20,000 people fill that survey out from all 50 states and every demographic and military service from World War II to today. So that's a success. I definitely place in your court there, Jen. I mean, but you built on what I started to do on 2018, and that was synthesized into a report that was used.
Yeah. And just to be clear, it was also people who haven't served, who didn't serve in World War II or the Global War on Terrorism or Vietnam. They were able to participate in the survey as well. How would you say that their input helped?
One of the most moving things for me during this, I mean, a lot of things have happened over the nearly decade I've been working on this. It's when I read those surveys, whether the ones I collected in 2018 or some of the other ones, it wasn't just a multiple guess thing, and it was a 5 to 7 minute survey, right? Most people tend to spend it 30, 60 seconds, but so you were able to get 20,000 people for 5 to 7 minutes, which is pretty remarkable. But the reason I say like that is because when I read them, they all sound the same. meaning it captures the voice of the American people, whether they served or not. The difference between those that served
Mm.
and those that didn't serve was a single choice. We're not better, we're not above, we're not below, we're not, there's so many other ways that people can serve this nation. Not everyone's got to raise their right hand, pick up a gun, and run to the sound of gunfire. Um, there's so many other ways to do it. And when I read those surveys, the reason it was very important for me to capture the voice of the American people is that commonality of between us all, because we're no different. Those that serve and those that didn't serve, we're not any different than you. There's no such thing as a civilian military divide. There's just a misunderstanding. My father, when he came home from Vietnam, he experienced a civilian military divide, and that generation swore it would never happen again, and it won't, and it's not.
Mm.
We just have a misunderstanding. So, one of the things that was important for me was to capture that. But then equally important is take that to our nation's capital and have it heard in the building of this memorial and have it directly influence the design.
Mm. Yeah. So, speaking of the design, we are approaching the design of this memorial quite differently than has ever done before. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about that and allow that to transition into your vision for the Design Advisory Council.
The approach has been through not the lens of a warfighter that I was at one point in my life, but through that of an artist. So I was introduced to art when I was at Walter Reed after some injuries, and it was part of therapy. And I was introduced to it's the purest form of communication. I think it's the earliest recorded form of communication. And it can be, paint on a canvas. It can come across in different ways. So as an artist myself, if I was approached to capture the experience of the population, and the analogy I like to use, if I was approached by a group of mothers and they're like, Rod, we would love if you could forge us, I work in steel, something on what it's like to give birth to a child. I was there for the birth of two of my three sons. I've delivered babies in third world countries as when I was in the military. I'd have a lot of questions as a vessel of their voice. So with that being said, I wanted to be sure that we had input. And conversely, if I'm sure, Jen, you're a mother, and I'm sure you'd agree, your experience during childbirth is very different than anyone else's. There's no two things, which is a lot of people suggested, well, let's get perhaps as an artist myself, a GWOT veteran. I could design it. And I tell you, I couldn't. I'm not an expert on the global war on terrorism. My view is my view. The services and experiences of those that have served and those that have lost, like in the Gold Star community, like yourself, is very different. And there's absolutely, it would be, I couldn't add everyone else's input as a warfighter into it would be be too subjective. So the approach was to get the voice of the people and then build a design advisory council that would directly influence with the designer and their team what this memorial should look like. And you are one of our co-chairs. There's 22 other members of our design advisory council that make up our stakeholders, right? We have Gold Star family members, we have Gold Star children, we have Gold Star parents. We have a chaplain. This is very important. We have an Army chaplain. We have non-uniform veterans, because there are over 3,400 non-uniform, quote unquote, civilians that have given their lives in service in some form or fashion in the global war on terrorism. That's a statistic 99.999% of the people have never heard, and you can go ahead, look it up. Department of Labor put out a report in 2019 that validates that. That's how I found out that number. So we have non-uniform service members. As a matter of fact, we have the very first family to experience a KIA, right? The very first very first KIA was Johnny Michael Spann. He wasn't even in the military at that point. He worked for the CIA Special Activities Division, killed in November of 2001. Shannon Spann is a member of our DAC, as is Alex Hernandez. He was Team Alpha, the CIA team. He was Mike's team leader. He's the one that he was the first one to bring one of our heroes home, right? Escorted Mike's remains home. So that's the makeup of it. We also have the future component of this open-ended war. We have one of our members that has watched his mother his father and his brother go serve and fight in this GWOT that is planning on enlisting and serving his nation as well. So we're trying to capture everyone that we possibly can to help influence the design itself.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously know each and every one of them, and they are all amazing in their own right. Why are the Design Advisory Council's voices so important in providing inspiration towards the design of this memorial?
Getting a world-class artist on board was important because an inspired artist will design brilliance. They absolutely will. In the art community, I mean, whatever it is, if an artist is truly inspired, a humble artist is truly inspired, they can communicate that effectively. So it's been very important for that reason, but equally so, perhaps more, is to be sure that those voices have a face and those voices are taken and represented and in our nation's capital, right? Something that I like to say is like, look, this memorial, this war memorial is about people, not about policy and politics. I don't engage in that. I didn't write the policy that sent me to war. You didn't write the policy that sent you to war, or Eddie when we lost him, or my son that when he deployed to the same region of Ghana. I didn't write that. I also wasn't in Washington, D.C. making the decisions to send troops anywhere. It's about the people. And that's why it's really important for people. I hope everybody that watches this will see the commonality between us all, whether they served or not. I could be your neighbor. I could be your brother. It's so incredibly important for us as a nation to recognize who we are, and the incredible fighting spirit that does exist in our populations, in spite of what anybody might read on social media or hear on the news.
Yeah. Well, as you know, in some of the coming episodes during this season, I'm going to be having conversations with some of the Design Advisory Council members. You have sat down with each and every one of them and had an engagement, as we refer to it, or a conversation about why this memorial is so important to them, what they hope this memorial will bring, so on and so forth. What surprised you most about those conversations that you had with the DAC, or the Design Advisory Council?
I think, well, the first thing that surprised me is as I started to build the DAC, right, the Design Advisory Council, and what everybody's seen as far as the plan and all that is written on a whiteboard right over there. 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I was writing it down. And one of the first things that surprised me when I asked all of these people, you included, would they be consider joining this, helping me form this Design Advisory Council? Every single one of them, if you look at the DACs, amazing individuals. They were like, why me? I think you can find someone better. I'm not the one. Like, and not because they didn't want to, but they didn't feel worthy enough. So that's the thing that surprised me the most, because I admired and loved every one of them. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, just say yes. I'll take care of the rest. So that was the probably first surprise in the formation of the DAC, the tremendous amount of humility in all that they've given. So I really hope everybody goes to look at who they are and learn about them, and maybe tell their story. Tell their story. Find one and learn about them and tell their story to somebody else. So that's what. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, no. And then the next thing that was surprising for me in the during the engagements that you referenced, a couple minutes ago, was the vulnerability they placed themselves in to share everything. I mean, they opened their hearts, and to truly just share and to tell their story. And I say vulnerability because it requires vulnerability to effectively communicate. Because if you're not willing to be vulnerable, are you really telling everything? Are you really sharing all of the truth? The vulnerability and honesty was amazing. Some of the stuff I heard, I heard my son say I had never heard, right? And you experienced some of the things when I sat down with you and Eddie. Just that, it was overwhelming. But when I look back on it, that's just fuel to keep going forward, and it keeps us on azimuth, and lets us know why we're doing this.
Absolutely. Why now, Rod? Why is now the time to build this memorial?
Aside from the fact it is our sacred duty, our shared duty as citizens to honor and remember those that are willing to step forward, serve, and possibly give their lives for us, that's our duty, whether people like it or not. If you don't do it, who's going to do it in the future? Such an incredibly small percent of the population is doing it, which speaks to the resiliency, strength, effectiveness, and might and strength that they have. That's our duty. A bigger part is when I first started working on this project in 2016, talking with everyone that would listen to me. Uh, the people that pushed back the most were like, we don't need that. Why are you doing that? Why? That's just amazing. Was the veteran community and their families. And I didn't understand why. I'm like, what? I didn't understand why. And then after a while, it kind of struck me. I'm like, I think I know why. So I started asking the question back. And I would say, hey, look, do you know someone, perhaps you know someone that didn't come home? I want you to think about their family, or someone that did come home and is struggling, whether visible or invisible wounds of war, or having family issues, or do they deserve it because of their service? And every one of them said, heck yeah, yes, absolutely, they deserve it. I said, good. You think about them, I'll think about you. Now, what I realized during that process was that the veteran community and their families don't feel worthy of it. They don't feel anything that what they did warrants this tremendous work, warrants this effort. They're like, well, I don't need it, because that's when we raised our right hand for whatever the motivations are to serve. It wasn't for self-aggrandizement. It wasn't for any accolades or anything like that. Is people served. So they don't feel like they deserved it. I'm glad we talk about it a lot more, but there's an epidemic right now of veteran suicides and their family members. It's not just, suicide is a human condition, but the veterans and their family members are experiencing it at alarming percentages and rates, because they don't feel the value. They've given so much. The war, it comes home. I will say it. I'll be honest about it. You step into that arena, it's coming back. You get in that ring, it's coming back with you. And it's hard to face sometimes. I have hard days a lot, but I face it. So what I hope to do, the vision, really a goal when I realized this years ago, is I want to make this nation take a knee in reverence, honor them, respect them, place value into them, and hopefully they'll listen, right? Veterans are some hard-headed folks, right? But hopefully they'll listen and recognize this effort, and that this is done out of love. And I hope they feel value for all the work that not just the foundation has done, but our leaders in Washington, D.C., at Capitol Hill have done to help us get to this point. Feel value, because you know what someone will do if they feel value? Is they won't kill themselves. So it needs to be done. The sooner we can get this done, the sooner we can impart that value, and the sooner we can start saving lives.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I started this episode by welcoming you home. And the name of this podcast is Welcome Home. For a good reason. I was intentional about that. Can you share with the listeners why we are choosing to call this podcast Welcome Home, and why we are saying that the memorial will be our home?
Well, first and foremost, I want to give you credit for naming this episode. When you shared that with me, I'm like, absolutely, that's the perfect name. And over the years, you and I have been working together on this. That's really what we're doing. What we realize is we're building a home for us to come home, a place where you can engage and talk with those that may not know you, or reunite with those that you serve with, or to remember those that we've lost. Home is it's a place of love, and that's what we're doing, right? We're building a home, in the city that makes the decisions and writes the policies. We don't do it. We just serve. That's why it's always about people. It's very important that people look at this as a home. Like everyone, people that can remember, the Vietnam generation, my father's generation never got that welcome home. And when they got it, oh my gosh, I mean, that saved lives. And that's a metric we can't quantify. We don't know how many lives were saved by just saying that simple thing. So given the direction that we're going and the need for this now, welcoming people home will be like, okay, I have a place. I'm worth it, right? And that's my home.
And so, what do you hope for this podcast?
Wow. I hope for a lot of things. I hope for people to learn about our nation's greatest asset, the men and women that step forward and serve, and their families. I hope people become engaged. Obviously, I would love to have them there on groundbreaking day and on dedication day, and have them contribute in whatever fashion they can, whether it's time, talent, or treasure. I hope that people can understand the process of building a national war memorial in Washington, D.C. I'm glad it's this challenging, because no telling what kind of crap would be built up there if it wasn't this hard. But I hope people will come together and realize that this is a necessary effort. It's a worthwhile endeavor. And for me, it's a truly undeserved honor, in my opinion.
It is. It is. So my final question for you today, Rod, is if you can imagine dedication day and the memorial being complete and you welcoming our brothers and sisters home, what do you, Michael Rodriguez, hope to feel in those moments?
Man, that's a hard question. No one's asked me that. Good question, Jen. I hope they feel that those in attendance, whether they could attend or not, or those that find out about it, I mean, like, they feel their worth, right? That's what I hope. But for me personally, I don't know. I mean, I can't say a sense of accomplishment, because there's so much more to do afterwards with getting people convening and bringing people together and everything like that. And maybe that's just my maniacal approach. But on that day, I really hope that we feel recognized. We feel honored. We feel valued.
Rod, thank you for your time today, for your leadership, and for your belief that this podcast is going to share so much with so many. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jen, for leading this effort. Thank you for all the contributions to this mission. I mean, you've had an incredible impact, and I'm honored to work with you.
Welcome Home is produced by Jennifer Blum, Holly Soria, and me, Jennifer Ballou. Our operations manager is Henry Howard. Art for Welcome Home is by Minerva Consulting. Our theme, A Place Like Home, is by Birgensen Lundberg via Epidemic Sound. Mixing and editing is by Jennifer Blum. Thank you to Tango Alpha Lima Podcast and the American Legion for their collaboration on this inaugural series. You can find their episodes, guests, and more at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. You can find out more about the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation, get updates on the National War Memorial, and learn how you can get involved by following us on your favorite social media platforms or by visiting GWOT Memorial Foundation.org.